I always thought we were solid, unshakable even. Madison and I had been together for 6 years, married for 3, and through all the highs and lows, she was my anchor. We had the kind of relationship people envied. That's not just me romanticizing it after the fact. People would actually say it. You two just seem so in sync. They'd tell us at dinner parties or family gatherings. And for the most part, we were. But the thing about relationships is that you never truly know what's happening in someone else's mind or heart. You never know how small cracks can spread and splinter until everything breaks. It was supposed to be a simple getaway, a weekend at the coast, just the two of us. We've been so busy with work lately. I've been pulling late nights at the office, trying to nail down a big promotion, and Madison, well, she had been a little distant. At the time, I chalked it up to stress. She'd recently started her own photography business, and I knew she was struggling to find her footing. Between her shoots and editing marathons, we barely had time for each other. That weekend was supposed to fix that. I had booked a small cottage overlooking the ocean, nothing too extravagant, but just enough to give us some peace and quiet. Madison was thrilled when I told her about it, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like we were on the same page again. The first day was perfect. We woke up late, had breakfast on the deck, and spent hours walking along the shore. Madison had her camera with her, snapping pictures of the waves, the seagulls, and even a few candid shots of me when she thought I wasn't looking. Her smile was back, and so was the light in her eyes. For the first time in months, I felt like we were us again. But everything changed that night. It was around sunset when we decided to head down to the beach one last time before dinner. Madison wanted to capture the way the light hit the water, so I gave her some space and wandered off to skip stones like I used to when I was a kid. I could see her in the distance, crouched low with her camera, completely absorbed in her work. That's when he showed up. At first, I didn't think much of it. He was just some guy walking along the beach, shirtless and tan, with the kind of confidence that made you instantly dislike him. He stopped a few feet away from Madison and said something I couldn't hear. She laughed, a light, airy sound that carried over the waves, and then stood up to face him. I told myself it was nothing. She was friendly like that, always striking up conversations with strangers. It was one of the things I loved about her. So I turned my back and let them talk. But when I glanced over my shoulder a few minutes later, they were still at it. He was leaning in closer now, gesturing animatedly with his hands, and she was smiling in a way that made my stomach twist. It wasn't just polite anymore. There was something else there, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I wanted to walk over to insert myself in the conversation and remind this guy that Madison wasn't just some girl he could flirt with. But I didn't. Maybe it was pride, or maybe I didn't want to seem insecure. Either way, I stayed where I was, watching as they talked and laughed like I wasn't even there. Eventually, Madison waved goodbye to him and walked back toward me, her face flushed and her smile wider than I'd seen it in months. "Who was that?" I asked casually, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. "Oh, just some guy who wanted to know if I was a professional photographer," she said, brushing it off like it was nothing. "He said I have a good eye." I nodded, forcing a smile, but something about the way she said it didn't sit right with me. Her tone was too light, too breezy, like she was trying to downplay whatever had just happened. That night, I couldn't shake the image of them on the beach. The way she had laughed at whatever he said, the way her body had angled toward him, like he was the only person in the world. But I didn't say anything. I didn't want to ruin our weekend over something that was probably just in my head. If only I'd known what that one moment would set in motion. If only I'd known how quickly everything would unravel. For a while, I managed to convince myself that nothing was wrong. Madison seemed lighter after that weekend, more herself. She was smiling more, laughing at my jokes again, even initiating affection in a way she hadn't done for months. I wanted to believe the getaway had worked, that we'd hit the reset button and move past whatever invisible distance had crept into our marriage. But then little things started to pile up. At first, they were so small I almost didn't notice them. She started spending more time on her phone, always tilting the screen away when I walked into the room. She started staying late at her studio, claiming she was editing or prepping for a client. And then there were the absences I couldn't quite explain, the nights she'd come home hours after she said she would, her excuses always just plausible enough not to question. I don't know if it was gut instinct or paranoia, but something in me knew. Something in me whispered, she's hiding something. It wasn't until about 2 months after the beach trip that the pieces started to come together. I was cleaning up the living room one night while Madison was in the shower, and I knocked her bag off the coffee table by accident. Her camera tumbled out, along with a small stack of SD cards. I wasn't snooping. At least, that's what I told myself. I just wanted to see the photos she'd been working on. I wanted to feel connected to her again. The first few photos were beautiful, as expected. Sunsets, waves crashing on the shore, candid shots of me skipping stones. But then I clicked onto a different folder, one I didn't recognize. The first image was a close-up of her hand holding a glass of wine, the reflection of a man in the background. I felt my stomach drop. The next image was of the same man, shirtless and grinning, his body framed by the soft glow of candlelight. It was him, the guy from the beach. There were more photos, each one more intimate than the last. Madison sitting on the edge of the bed, her hair tousled and her lips parted in a way that made my chest ache. His hand on her thigh, his face buried in her neck. A selfie of the two of them lying in bed, the sheets tangled around their bodies. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the camera. The sound of the shower running in the background faded, replaced by the pounding of my heart in my ears. I wanted to scream, to throw the camera against the wall, to march into the bathroom and demand she explain herself. But I didn't. Instead, I sat there, paralyzed by a wave of emotions I wasn't prepared for: rage, disbelief, heartbreak, humiliation. By the time she came out of the shower, wrapped in a towel and humming softly to herself, I had managed to put the camera back in her bag and shove it onto the table. I couldn't look at her. I couldn't speak. I told her I wasn't feeling well and went to bed early, but sleep didn't come. The next few days were unbearable. I couldn't stop replaying the images in my head, couldn't stop imagining the moments they captured. Every time Madison touched me or kissed me, I wanted to push her away. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to confront her. I kept telling myself I needed more proof, that I couldn't accuse her without being absolutely certain. But deep down, I already knew. The breaking point came a week later. Madison had gone out for coffee with a client, and I couldn't stop myself from checking her location. It was something I'd never done before, but desperation makes you do things you swore you'd never stoop to. Her pin wasn't at a coffee shop. It was at a small boutique hotel about 20 minutes from our house. I don't remember driving there. I don't remember parking or walking into the lobby. All I remember is standing outside the door to room 214, my hands trembling as I heard muffled laughter from the other side. I knocked. Once, twice, 3 times. The laughter stopped. For a moment, I thought maybe I had the wrong room, that I was about to humiliate myself in front of a random stranger. But then the door opened, and there she was, Madison, standing in nothing but a robe, her hair damp and her face flushed. Behind her, I could see him, the guy from the beach, sitting on the edge of the bed, pulling on his jeans. "Ethan," she started, her voice trembling. I don't remember what I said. I don't even remember leaving. All I know is that one moment I was standing in that doorway, staring at the woman I thought I knew, and the next I was sitting in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. When I finally got home, the house felt empty, even though it wasn't. Madison came back a few hours later, her face streaked with tears, begging me to let her explain. But I couldn't hear it. I couldn't look at her. I just walked into the guest room, closed the door, and collapsed onto the bed, the weight of it all crashing down on me at once. That night, I cried for the first time in years. Not just for the betrayal, but for the life we'd built, the memories we'd shared, the future I thought we were working toward. I cried because I knew nothing would ever be the same again. The morning after I caught Madison at the hotel was a haze. I woke up in the guest room, my head pounding and my throat dry, the weight of everything crashing back into me before I even opened my eyes. For a moment, I thought maybe it had all been a nightmare. But when I walked into the kitchen and saw her sitting at the table, her face pale and her eyes swollen from crying, I knew it was real. She looked up at me, clutching her coffee cup like it was the only thing holding her together. "Ethan," she said softly, her voice cracking, "please, can we talk?" I should have walked out. I should have told her there was nothing left to say. But instead, I sat down across from her, my body stiff and my arms crossed, waiting for her to explain. Maybe it was the part of me that still loved her, the part of me that wasn't ready to accept what had happened, or maybe I just wanted to hear her admit it out loud, to make her say the words and confront the damage she'd done. She started crying before she even got the first sentence out. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I swear, Ethan, I never planned any of this. It was a mistake. A stupid, horrible mistake, a mistake." I snapped, my voice rising despite myself. "Sleeping with someone is not a mistake, Madison. It's a choice. A deliberate, conscious choice. So don't sit here and act like you just tripped and fell into bed with him." She flinched at my words, her tears spilling over as she buried her face in her hands. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to reach across the table and wipe away her tears like I'd done so many times before. But the anger inside me was too strong, burning hotter with every passing second. "How long?" I asked, my voice cold and sharp. "How long has this been going on?" She hesitated, and I could see the battle raging in her eyes. The part of her that wanted to protect me from the truth warring with the part of her that knew there was no point in lying anymore. "Since the beach," she admitted finally, her voice trembling. "That night, after you went to bed, I couldn't sleep. I went for a walk, and he was there. We started talking, and one thing led to another. I clenched my fists under the table, trying to keep my emotions in check. "And you've been seeing him ever since?" She nodded, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "It wasn't supposed to be like this, Ethan. I don't even know why I did it. I love you. I do. I felt so lost, and he made me feel, I don't know, alive, I guess." "Alive?" I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. "So what? I wasn't enough for you? Our life, our marriage, that wasn't enough?" "No, it's not like that," she said quickly, her words tumbling out in a desperate rush. "You are enough. You've always been enough. But we've been so distant lately, and I felt like you didn't see me anymore. Like you didn't even care." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Had I been distant? Sure. I'd been working long hours, and I wasn't always the most attentive husband, but I never stopped loving her. I never stopped trying to build a life with her. And now she was blaming me for her betrayal, as if my imperfections somehow justified what she'd done. "I can't believe you're trying to make this my fault," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "You're the one who cheated, Madison. You're the one who lied and snuck around and destroyed everything we built. So don't sit there and act like I pushed you into his arms." She broke down completely then, her sobs echoing through the kitchen as she begged me to forgive her. "I'll do whatever it takes," she said, her voice raw and pleading. "I'll go to therapy. I'll cut off all contact with him. I'll do anything, Ethan. Just please don't give up on us." I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just sat there, staring at the woman I thought I knew, the woman I'd vowed to spend the rest of my life with, and wondered how we'd gotten here. How had we gone from being inseparable to this? For the next few days, we barely spoke. Madison tried to give me space, but her presence in the house was suffocating. Every time I looked at her, all I could see were the photos on her camera, the image of her standing in that hotel doorway with him behind her. She kept her promise, though. She blocked him on her phone, deleted his number, even handed me her passwords to prove she had nothing to hide. She started seeing a therapist and begged me to go to couples counseling with her. I wanted to say no. I wanted to walk away and never look back. But a part of me, some foolish, hopeful part of me, thought maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to fix this. So I agreed. The counseling sessions were brutal, to say the least. Sitting across from Madison and rehashing every painful detail of her affair felt like ripping open a wound that refused to heal. She said all the right things, that she regretted what she'd done, that she loved me, that she was willing to do whatever it took to earn back my trust. But no matter how sincere she sounded, I couldn't shake the doubt. Every time her phone buzzed, I wondered if it was him. Every time she left the house, I wondered if she was lying about where she was going. Even when she was sitting right next to me, I couldn't help but wonder if she was thinking about him. The hardest part wasn't the anger or the betrayal. It was the loss of the life we'd built together, The realization that the woman I loved wasn't who I thought she was. She wasn't my Madison anymore, and maybe she never had been. It's been 6 months since I walked into that hotel room. 6 months of sleepless nights, endless therapy sessions, and questions that I'll probably never get answers to. Some days, it feels like we're making progress, like the pieces of our marriage might actually fit back together again. Other days, it feels like I'm fooling myself, like I'm trying to hold on to something that's already slipped through my fingers. I chose to stay. I know some people won't understand that. Hell, there are days I don't even understand it myself. After everything she did, after the lies, the betrayal, the sheer audacity of it all, walking away would have been easier, cleaner. But I didn't. I stayed because I loved her. Because I still do, even after everything. That's the part no one tells you about infidelity. It doesn't just erase the love you feel. It doesn't just wipe away the memories or the years you've spent building a life together. Love doesn't turn off like a light switch, no matter how much you wish it would. But staying hasn't been easy. At first, it felt like living with a stranger. Madison did everything she could to prove she was sorry. She deleted her social media accounts, handed over her phone whenever I asked, and went to therapy twice a week. She even quit her studio job because she said it reminded her too much of what she'd done, of the lies she told to cover her tracks. On paper, she did everything right. She followed all the advice in the books and the blogs about rebuilding trust after an affair. She gave me space when I needed it, apologized 100 times over, and swore up and down that she'd never make the same mistake again. But none of it erased what had happened. None of it silenced the voice in my head whispering, "She chose him over you." The hardest part has been the nights. Lying next to her in bed, knowing she had shared this same intimacy with someone else, is a kind of pain I can't describe. There's a permanent crack in the foundation of what we had, and no matter how much effort she puts into repairing it, I can't unsee the cracks. I've spent countless hours replaying the past in my head, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. Was it me? Was it her? Was it both of us? In therapy, Madison confessed that she'd felt neglected for a long time. She said my long hours at work, my constant focus on my career, made her feel invisible. She said she missed the way I used to look at her, like she was the center of my world. And when she met him, that guy on the beach, she said he made her feel seen again. I hated hearing that. I hated knowing that I'd failed her in some way, even if it didn't excuse what she did. But I also hated how quickly she turned to someone else instead of coming to me. "You could have talked to me," I told her during one of our sessions. "You could have told me how you were feeling, what you needed from me. But instead, you went to him." She cried when I said that. She told me she didn't know how to tell me, that she was afraid I wouldn't understand. But the truth is, I don't know if I ever could have understood. How do you rationalize the person you love sleeping with someone else? How do you make sense of the choice to betray your own vows? Even now, I'm still grappling with those questions. Madison and I are still together, but the version of our marriage we had before is gone. It's like trying to live in a house that's been gutted by fire. No matter how much you rebuild, the scars are still there. The damage always lingering beneath the surface. We go to therapy once a week. We talk more than we ever have before about everything. Our fears, our insecurities, the things we need from each other. I can't say it's easy because it's not. It's messy and painful and exhausting. There are moments where I catch glimpses of the woman I fell in love with, the woman I married. When she smiles at me a certain way, or when she laughs at something I say, I remember why I stayed. I remember why I'm fighting for this. But there are also moments where the doubt creeps in, where I wonder if I made the wrong choice. I wonder if I'm staying out of love or fear or some twisted sense of obligation. I wonder if I'll ever be able to look at her without thinking about him. I think the worst part is knowing that I'll never fully trust her again. No matter how hard she tries, no matter how much progress we make, there will always be a part of me that wonders if she's lying, if she's hiding something. It's not fair to either of us, but it's the truth. A few weeks ago, during one of our sessions, the therapist asked me what I wanted to stay or to leave. And for the first time, I admitted that I didn't know. I still don't. Some days, I think we might actually make it. Other days, I think I'm wasting my time. But for now, I'm here. I'm trying, and maybe that's all I can do.